Welcome to FBB Forum. My name is David, and this is a forum about female muscle. If you like this content, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'm very pleased to welcome the stunning IFBB Pro Women's Physique competitor, Jess Falborn. Hello.
Hey David, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Great.
Jess has been competing in bodybuilding since 2019, and she earned her pro card in 2022 at the North Americans. And Jess will make her anticipated pro debut in 2024. So stay tuned to find out more. Welcome, Jess. Really glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to join as well.
Thank you. So my first few questions are about how you got started in bodybuilding, and I was curious if you had an athletic or sports background before you started in bodybuilding.
Yeah. As you mentioned, I started in bodybuilding in 2019 competitively. But growing up, I was pretty athletic. So I played, I did track, I played softball, I played soccer for, probably 10 to 12 years, probably a little bit longer, from
Hmm.
like I was really young all the way through high school. And then I played lacrosse for 6 to 8 years.
Mhm.
Um, I was always a lifelong athlete. Almost went to college to play lacrosse on a scholarship, but decided I wanted to party instead. So,
Aha.
I was good enough to go to like a low level or a mid-level D2 or D3 school. I wasn't phenomenal, but
Uh-huh.
um, I decided instead I wanted to go to a really large school. I went to University of Delaware, and I was not nearly good enough to play any sport there at the collegiate level. So I wanted to go. I wanted the big school experience. So I didn't play sports there, and I really wasn't that active in college. It was more just about studying and partying and enjoying myself and kind of figure out what I wanted to do after college. And then I moved to DC, which I can talk a little bit more about kind of my early career, but I wasn't very active in my like early 20s. And then I got kind of back into the gym. In right before I turned 30, I was like 29, I got into CrossFit, and I had been going to the gym more frequently for a couple of years before that. And then when I got into CrossFit, I had a lot of friends and family say, it's about time, Jess. Like, you're such a competitive person and you've been lifting. So I really enjoyed CrossFit. And then I got from CrossFit, I got into powerlifting, and then I completely changed my career and went into fitness full time. And I was getting ready to do a powerlifting meet, and I hurt my back. And it wasn't an awful injury, but it was enough to limit me from being able to compete. And
Mhm.
being such a competitive person, I was like, I got to find something else that I can compete in that doesn't require me to lift that heavy for my back for the time being.
Yeah.
And my coach at the time, he was a CrossFit coach, he was a nutritionist, and he also was a bodybuilder. And he said, Jess, you have the genetics. You've been lifting for a few years now. Why not just try out a bodybuilding show and see if you like it? And I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. I think it's good because, now I'm starting my career in fitness. Then I can learn about the discipline that's needed for competing in a bodybuilding show and transforming your body like that. And I can teach that to my clients. So I didn't really have an off season per se or a growing period. I just hopped into a prep for 16 weeks and did my first show in figure in 2019, down in Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C. And I thought I was just going to be one and done. I thought, okay, one show, got the experience, but of course I got the bug, and I went on from there. So yeah, I always had a background in athletics and sports, but bodybuilding was new in 2019.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good journey, and having that sports background and competitive nature probably was really helpful. So you can't do powerlifting anymore, or are you still considering doing it?
I mean, I could. I always joke about like what I'll do once I'm done with bodybuilding,
Hmm.
but then each year progresses and I get more and more into the sport. And I don't know if there'll ever be a time I'm done with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for the rest of my life I won't compete. There will be a time when I stop competing. And I don't want to injure myself competing in another sport that would conflict with my bodybuilding career.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I have a lot of interest in powerlifting. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts for a little while, and I love hand-to-hand combat and kickboxing and martial arts. So I think there might be space for me to pursue some of that stuff in the future. I still I coach CrossFit, so I still hop in to do CrossFit workouts occasionally now that I'm in my off season, and I can do some of those HIIT workouts. So I'll be a lifelong athlete forever, but can I say definitively if I'm going to hop in to do something competitively again? I no, but maybe I will. We'll
Okay,
see.
very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you CrossFit seems like really intense. Did you get any injuries during that time or?
Nothing serious. I mean, I I have like the typical CrossFit shoulder injury where like everyone gets a little something in their like rotator cuff space in the
Yeah.
back of their shoulder. And so it's not anything that like comes up on imaging or anything. It's not anything that limits me. I just work around it. If it gets aggravated from maybe a back day or maybe some like heavy pressing, I have body work that I get done and I can kind of work around it. But that's something that I've learned too, you know, over the years. It's not something I'm going to push through because it can always get a lot worse. So
Mhm.
um, I'm lucky that that's the only minimal minor injury I sustained while doing CrossFit. And you're right. Like, I think it gets that stigma or that stereotype that you can get a lot of injuries from CrossFit, but I
Hmm.
pride myself in being a really safe coach and not allowing my athletes to progress to anything unless they've mastered the basics and have the strength and
Okay.
have proper form. So I think injuries can happen when someone pushes themselves and they don't have the proper form or that strength base, for example. But I pride myself in not allowing my athletes to do that, and I've maintained that for myself too. So
That's terrific. That's great. Now, when you started competing in bodybuilding, did you have like a fitness role model when you started?
gosh, is it bad to say I didn't?
No, not at all.
um, I mean, now I definitely do as I've gotten into the sport. But no, I didn't really have a fitness role model per se. I had other role models in my life for people that were like definitions of hard work.
Hmm.
Uh, and I just applied that same intensity and work ethic to athletics and sports and competing. But I'm very intrinsically and internally motivated. So I've always, this sounds probably very cliche and very corny, but I've always been my own motivation because I
Yeah,
always want to beat what I've done before.
sure. I think that's good. And and you're your own role model. See, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, why not, right? Like, who wouldn't want to look in the mirror at the end of the day and be like, I'm really inspired by this person looking back at me? Like, you should
Uh-huh.
speak to yourself the same way you would speak to someone that, you know, does inspire you or does motivate you. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's certainly times, like I said, there's people now that I look up to. There's competitors now. I've gotten to know a lot of like really top level elite bodybuilders, and I look up to them. I watch their motivation videos, all of that. But when I was just starting in the sport, I didn't really know who to look to. So I just kind of looked inwards and then to some of the role models I had in my like former career and growing up and stuff.
Sure. That's really cool. I think that's great. I was wondering when you first started competing, did you get nervous up on stage? Because and you get nervous these days because I just think it would be kind of nerve-wracking to get up there on stage in a bikini and you got the bright lights and everything.
No, honestly, now if I could be on stage every weekend, I would. Like, I love to be on stage.
Very
That's,
cool.
I'm in the zone. I love showing off the hard work. I love, you know, posing. I love a good pose down. My first show, I was definitely nervous, although you probably couldn't tell if you were to watch the videos from it because I do a really good job of hiding that.
Uh-huh.
But um, really quick, fun side story. Fun now, wasn't fun then. I almost missed my opportunity to get on stage for that show. So
Oh,
my two coaches at the time, they had both done this show. It was a local show. It was a national qualifier, and they'd both done it previous years. And so they assumed, and we found out incorrectly, what the schedule was going to be and how long it would take to get to figure.
mhm.
And so I was staying nearby at a hotel. We went in the morning. I checked in the day before, but I went in the morning for the athletes meeting, got the order of events, like went back to my hotel to finish my hair and makeup and was like carving up a little bit. I didn't know the process. It was my first show. And so we casually make our way over to the high school where it was being held. And we're walking in, and I hear someone say, "Oh, you're number 24. they're calling your number to get on stage.
Oh no.
And I lost it because this was my first ever show. I said, I am not going to waste 16 blanking weeks of work by just missing my time on stage. So I didn't even have my heels on. So my sister and my posing coach were both shoving my feet into the heels, strapping them. I'm like hopping backstage. My other coach is running up to tell them I'm coming. I didn't pump up. Like I was very nervous walking on stage because I was like shaking from the adrenaline. And so I like walk out on stage, and fortunately the crowd like erupted because I think they knew that I was probably really shaken from that. And so that was my first experience. And since then I'm just so anal about like my timing for when I get to the venue and all of that. But that was probably the most nervous I ever was on stage. After that, not so much.
I understand. And that's a good lesson learned too. I mean, especially for your first show. I mean,
You have your worst experience first.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And it could be worse. Could have a wardrobe malfunction up there too.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had like, you have those like nightmares of like worst case scenarios, and I've definitely had them. And I think it's good because like I've already imagined them and I've gotten them out of my mind, and I'm like, that's not going to happen. But I'll give you an example of another worst case scenario. So every year I've done 4 shows. Every year I've done my own hair and makeup, or my sister has been there and she's done my hair, but I've done my own makeup every time. And so this last year, in 2022, when I was going for my pro card, this is my 3rd attempt at my pro card. And I decided, you know what? This is a different show, different venue. I'm going to do things different. I'm going to actually hire someone to do my hair and my makeup. So I have zero stress that morning. I'll just leave it in someone else's hands. So I put the deposit down for it. And the night before I still hadn't heard anything. They said I would hear something, 48 hours in advance, confirming my time, whatever. The night before, it's, less than 24 hours. I message them and I say, hey, like I haven't heard anything. Can you just confirm you'll be here in my room at this time? And I get a response from them that it was a mass response to everyone that had booked with them, that in fact, no, they would not be coming to my room, that I would have to go to their hotel at 4:00 in the morning. I couldn't have any food in the room. I couldn't have my coach in the room.
Wow.
And Women's Physique was on pretty early, and I'm class A because I'm short and my last name's early in the alphabet. So there was just no way that I could do that. Plus, it's just that adds stress. That's not taking away stress, and that was my intention. So,
sure.
this was maybe like 4 p.m. the day before. And so and at that point, anyone who's competed knows you can't have your stress high at that time, because if your cortisol spikes, you're going to be flat and watery, and it's the last thing you want. So I was very lucky that I had already thought through worst case scenario in my head, and I brought everything to do my own hair and makeup.
Oh, good.
So, and this is something that guys don't have to worry about, but women really do. And so I needed like maybe 1 or 2 other things because I had a different suit color than previous years. So there was a Sephora in Pittsburgh. I could do online ordering. My friend that was with me went and picked up everything, brought it back, and I was fine. And I had such a relaxing morning.
Good.
It worked out well. But to your point, I've thought through the worst case scenarios and plan way ahead for that. Like I overpack because I just know what if something happens? I don't want to be stuck without anything. So worked out that time.
That's really good. And I think that's good for competitors to hear what you're saying too, just to think through those kind of things ahead of time.
Yeah.
You don't know, you can't, that they're not infallible, those hair and makeup folks and everything, so.
Yeah. And like, I'm not going to follow someone else's schedule for my show, right? I know when I have to be on stage, and then everything else is going to fall into line with what I need to do. So I'm not going to risk my time with my coach and the time that I have to have my meals and then pose for him and take pictures. That's my schedule. So everything else has to fit into my schedule. It's not the other way around. So I put deposits down and I lost the money for it, but at the end of the day, I won my pro card. So I don't care. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good segue for my next question. And that you turned pro in 2022 at the North Americans, but how did that feel? I bet it was really exciting for you to get your pro card.
Best day of my life. So I actually tattooed the date I got my pro card on my arm here.
Oh, that's awesome.
9222.
Yeah, I
Yep.
see.
I went the next day. There was a tattoo place right down the street from the venue, and I didn't even think about getting it. My friend was like, "Do you want to get that tattooed?" I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." Literally the best day of my life, and it was something that I was only working towards for 4 years, but it's probably the biggest goal I've ever had. And it felt a little bit different than I thought it would. Like I had already gone through the emotions in my head because I before a show I'll do manifestation meditations.
Mhm.
So every night I would listen to this meditation and I would envision every single detail of when they called my name on stage, what it would sound like, what my hair would look like, what my suit would look like, who was in the crowd, the faces I could see, what someone would be saying, like every single detail. So when it happened, I was like, oh, this is deja vu. Like I've already envisioned this. I know exactly what it's going to feel like. The really surreal and wonderful part was during prejudging in the morning. That's when we knew. And so once we got to finals, we already knew it was going to happen. And you usually you do. And I still had to battle a little bit to make sure I kept that. But in the morning, like I said, I'm class A. So I was one of the first, and I was probably the first one out in my class because of my last name. So I was the first women's physique competitor out on stage. And that is an advantage because then the judges judge everyone compared to you. It's an advantage when you're the first or the last one because those are the ones they remember. And then, of course, if there are standouts. But so I knew, like, I came on stage like a bat out of hell, and I was excited to be there. And that, like, those first 30 seconds when I did my individual posing or presentation, I was so happy. I knew the commentators that were doing live stream commentary. So I came off stage and went back around because they were right backstage. And they were like, oh, this competitor, she's backstage here. I think it was 496 was my number. It's a competitor 496. She just came off stage and she's smiling big. She feels good. And then, they bring you right back on stage for the comparisons. And the minute they moved me into the middle and I held it, we knew. And then I was waiting. They posed us a bunch. And as soon as they were like, okay, thank you, ladies, file off. I have a video that I posted and you can see me going like, yes, because I knew in that moment when you finish dead center, and we had an odd number. So there was a dead center, there wasn't like splitting the middle. And I heard my coach, my posing coach, my friends, my family, all in the crowd, they knew too in that moment. So then I came off stage and my friend who was doing the live stream commentary, he took his headphones off and came over to me. He was like, you got it. You got your pro card. Like, he was like, just get a little tighter for like the evening. Keep doing what you're doing. You got this. And so that moment, then I came back. I came back from backstage and saw my friends and family waiting there. And I literally, I'm going to call it koala beared my friend. Like I jumped up and wrapped my arms and legs around him and he spun me in the air. We knew. My mom started crying. I started crying. I was like, I don't want to fix my makeup. Like, I can't do this. Like, save it till later. But it was so surreal in that moment. Later on, it was great, but prejudging was when we knew. And then I had to sit all day and try to relax. I was like, how the hell do I relax when I know I'm about to hear and new IFBB Pro Jess Falborn? So that I will not forget that day. There's like every moment of that day is ingrained in my memory.
That's terrific. That's a good memory and good experience for you for sure. Yeah. And you had mentioned you tried 3 times, I think, to get your pro card, right?
Yeah, it was bittersweet, but I've never placed lower than second place. So I'm really lucky. Well, I don't want to say I'm lucky. I worked hard for that, but I was always knocking on the door. So I had my first show in figure in 2019. And as soon as I came off stage from that, I won true novice and I took second in class A. And so I was nationally qualified. And that was right before North Americans 2019. And I thought, why not just roll into North America? I'll try it out. Why not? And I'm really glad that I didn't because I was such an amateur competitor at that point. I wouldn't have gone pro at that show. I wasn't conditioned enough. I probably had the muscularity for figure at that point, but I'm glad I didn't do it. And my coaches then were like, okay, you need to do women's physique. And I, at that point, didn't know much about the sport. So I was like, no. figure is so feminine. I get to wear the heels. It's very flowy. And then over the next year, I learned way more about women's physique. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to try to nationally qualify again. I'm already qualified. Let me just hop into a national show. And then COVID hit. So my prep for 2020 was 6 months long. And I battled to get to stage, and I did get to stage. And the coach that I had actually dumped me as a client during peak week. So I was without a coach during peak week, and my posing coach, it was an ex-boyfriend, and long story short, but I went without a coach for peak week. And so my posing coach stepped in to help me, and she came in midnight the night before the show. I went down to Charleston to Junior USA's, and I took second place at my first ever national show, my first women's physique show. And I was really a coach. And I knew then, I was like, okay, I belong here. This is like, this wasn't a fluke. And then I was frustrated I didn't win, but I was like, okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to try again. So I took another year off, got a better coach, figured everything out. And the feedback I got was, you should go back to the same show and show the judges that you made the improvement, those same judges that you made the improvements they asked you to make. So I went back to Junior USA's, and I placed second again. And I was devastated. I was so devastated. But every one of those experiences was really special because I had great people with me. And even if I had the same placing, I had improved my physique quite a bit. I improved as an athlete. I improved my mentality. And the nice thing is, the third show I did, the second time I did Junior USA's, I had a lot of clients travel from DC, where I was living, all the way to Charleston to be there, to watch me, to cheer me on. And they were so inspired. So going back to my earlier goal that I wanted to teach and inspire my clients, even if I didn't win, I achieved that goal. So that was a really special show, even though I didn't win. And we tried to go on to do another show after that, but my body just couldn't hold a peak like that. It wasn't easy for me to do at that time. So we shut it down, and then went in 2022 and got my pro card.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool journey too, and and you got, it does, you have to fight sometimes and keep knocking at the door, until you win. I was curious, you had talked to me earlier about wanting to make your pro debut in early 2024. I didn't know if you could say what show you hope to compete in.
Yeah, I can say which ones I hope to compete in. I don't have a plan yet. So I mentioned earlier, I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while. I was there for 12 years. I moved up. I'm originally from New York State. I moved back up to New York, New Jersey in September of 2021 with the intention of like blowing up my bodybuilding career, my fitness career, all of that. This is really a mecca for bodybuilding. And we're just finishing up 3 days at NPC Universe. I was there doing some backstage interviews and seeing some friends compete. So my goal was always to be able to compete here locally in New York, New Jersey. So I didn't get my opportunity with Universe, not mad about it. Got my pro card, doesn't matter how you get it. But I've always wanted to do New York Pro, always wanted to do it. So my coach also has the same goal, that I'll be able to do New York Pro. But I'll admit, we're seeing Natalia, Miss Olympia, continue to do New York Pro and dominate. And I'm a firm believer that you can't just beat or match a Miss Olympia in any show. You have to completely dethrone them. You have to be so much better than them for them to give you the win over her. And she's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal Miss Olympia, phenomenal athlete. She's got so many years to go because she's so young. So all that being said, I come to win a show. I'm realistic. So if I know that Natalia is going to do New York Pro, I'm not going to not do it, but I also want to get to the Olympia in the shortest amount of time. I mean, who doesn't? So my strategy would be for next year to likely do some smaller shows and try to get my Olympia qualification, and likely also do the New York Pro because it's just a goal show of mine to do. If I were able to win the New York Pro and be crowned Queen of New York, like, I'm not going to say no. That would be the ultimate goal. But it may not happen in 2024. You know, it could happen later down the line in my career. But New York Pro is definitely a goal. But there are a lot of other smaller shows right around then. There's Shreveport, which I think sometimes is the same weekend as New York Pro. There's the St. Louis Pro. There's the Omaha Pro. So there are some smaller ones, not less prestigious, but smaller ones in the New York Pro that, again, it doesn't matter how you get to the Olympia. It just, if that's your goal, just get there however you can. So, so my strategy would be to do that. And then New York Pro would be the icing on the cake.
Great. That's terrific. Yeah. No, I think that's a good strategy too. And I definitely see what you mean about Natalia, because it's yeah, it's tough to compete against Ms. Olympia, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, it would be really cool. Like, you know, I had a teammate just compete against her at not at New York, at Pittsburgh. Amandine. Amandine Colley. She is one of my teammates, and she's from Switzerland, and she came all the way in, and she placed third at Pittsburgh. Was going to do New York Pro and decided not to. She placed third, and Natalia placed first at Pittsburgh, and then skipped New York Pro, and then went on to do Toronto. But she was pretty, you know, she was pretty bummed. She did great, but I mean, pretty bummed that she came all the way from Switzerland, and then Miss Olympia was doing the show.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's challenging, but she was really honored, and her and I talked about this, to be able to be compared to Miss Olympia, right?
Yeah.
Like to be able to stand next to her and pose next to her. I mean, if you want to be the best in a sport, you have to step up and compete with the best and be able to be compared with the best and understand where you need to improve. So I'm open to it. I'm ready for it. I'm a competitor and I love being on stage. So it would be the ultimate honor if I had that opportunity. And my goal is to get first call out in whatever my pro debut is.
That's terrific. Yeah, that's a good point. It is a good opportunity to get compared to the best. Yeah, that is really cool. I had a question in terms of feedback from the judges, especially back at 2022 North Americans. Did you get feedback in terms of where they want you to improve your physique?
They didn't have much to say, to be honest, which is a good thing. So I think, so conditioning is the number one thing for me. Conditioning has not been the easiest thing for me.
Yeah.
I carry a lot of muscle. I'm 5'1", and in my off season, I'm sitting at like 165 pounds.
Really?
Yeah, my stage weight was 135. So, and I have shape. I have visible abs. I have shape. Like I'm not really fat. I hold a lot of size. And so for me to get conditioned, it's just always been a challenge. And so this off season, we actually addressed some lingering gut issues that I didn't know existed, but I wanted to diagnose everything. I wanted to figure everything out, figure out if there was anything standing in my way of getting super lean, and still be able to maintain my femininity. And so we addressed my gut issues. I'm in a much healthier spot. And so the goal for the rest of this year is to be able to stay healthy, bring my food up as high as we can, so that when we do go to step into a prep, when we have to pull food, we don't have to drop to such crazy low levels. In previous years with previous coaches, my food dropped so low, and cardio was so high, where my body just ended up rejecting it and staying really inflamed. So the goal now is to be able to get obviously really conditioned so I can compete with the best of the best, and to do that in like the least harmful way possible. So that's been another reason why we've taken so much time away from the stage, is we want this prep to be as least damaging as possible, and as easy, but not as difficult as it has been in the past. So conditioning has been feedback that I've gotten. And I know, like, I was not the most conditioned girl up there. I'll be the first to admit it.
Yeah.
But other than that, some other things real quick that we're working on are just capping out my delts a little bit, especially my rear delts, bringing my lats out a little bit wider, because I naturally just have a little bit of a wider waist. I don't have the smallest waist.
Yeah, sure.
So we just want to give more of that illusion. My legs, I don't have to worry about. I'm lower body dominant. So
Okay.
Just a little bit of shoulders, a little bit of width on my lats, and then we just want to continue to bring up my biceps, which in my off season I really don't want to do that. Like they just get bigger and bigger. But if I need it for stage, I'm going to do it.
That's terrific. Yeah, that's great. I think you looked really good and at North Americans, and
Thank you.
yeah, you definitely stood out on stage. Yeah, yeah, I think that's tough with getting conditioned. I think it's just and doing it like you said safely. You just need to make sure, yeah, that you're keeping your health in mind, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing for me. I'm not going to sacrifice. I mean, as competitors, especially in the sport, we all make sacrifices, and you should know the risks like associated with any of those choices that you make. But for me, bodybuilding is not the end all be all. It's a chapter in my life. I'll probably always be working within bodybuilding, adjacent to it, within fitness, but I'm not going to compete for the rest of my life. I have other things that I want to achieve that require me to be really healthy. So I'm not going to sacrifice my health and take years off of my life to do things to get me absolutely inside out peeled. I'm not going to do it. And I'm okay with that. Some competitors are okay with taking those risks. Some aren't. And I always say this to new people or new competitors, especially women, like, you have to understand when you get up there, it's not a level playing field. This is not a natural federation. It is not level. Everyone's doing anything they can that they're comfortable with to get on that stage and win. So if you're not comfortable doing something that the girl next to you is comfortable doing, you have to be okay with knowing that may give her the edge. She may win, but you probably have some other strong points that may get you to win. So you just have to be really okay with that. And it's taken me a while to get there, but I'm very okay with my choices.
Sure. No, I think that's a good way of looking at it. I think that's good philosophy. And I wanted to warn you, we have about 7.5 minutes, so we're running a little bit low on time.
That's okay.
I was curious, what would you say is the toughest aspect of competition prep for you?
Oh, getting conditioned. Like I said,
Yeah.
It's just, I hope that that's not going to be for the future. I hope we've solved some of those concerns. But yeah, it's been getting really, really, really conditioned. My upper body is ready like that, but it's my lower body. I think it's because I hold on to so much muscle and we were facing some gut issues. It's taken a while for me to get there, but I'm hopeful that we've addressed that.
That's good. I did want to mention too, I think that's good for you to take the year off, because several of the women I've spoken with who've done that, that's just been improved them so much in the long run, so yeah, it is. I think that's smart for you to do that.
Yeah, and even mentally too. I mean, you always want to have a goal to work towards, and some people say, well, I don't know if I could take a whole year off. I don't know if I would have something to work towards. My goal hasn't changed. I still have that. Every day I think about that moment when they tell me that I've won and I'm going to the Olympia. Like, I still have that in my mind. Just because it's a little bit further down the road than I initially had thought, that doesn't change. I'm always working towards my goal.
Sure. I think that's great. Yeah, very good. Now, I was curious, do you have a hard time dealing with that transition between competition shape and off-season shape? Because I think, several of the muscle ladies go through some sort of body dysmorphia, but do you kind of feel that too, or do you get that feeling?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think anyone who competes in bodybuilding has body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be naive to say no. When I was going through the health phase that we went through to fix my gut, it was really challenging. Like, it had me feeling really low. I was covered up all the time. It affected everything. It affected my relationships. It affected work. So it was definitely challenging. And that post-show time period too, when you start to see body fat come back up and you lose the lines, and it messes with your head a lot. But I've learned to appreciate what my body can do and appreciate my health. And it's a fact that, like, women should not be that lean all the time because our hormones will be out of balance. So I've learned a lot more. And it's just, I mean, it's a daily, some days I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to look at myself. I look fat. And then other days I'm like, oh my God, I look great. So it's just, every day is different. And I'm sure anyone struggles with that stuff too, but it's a challenge. Yeah. It's not, I wouldn't say that I don't struggle with it. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Sure. I understand that. Yeah, no, I think it's especially tough because you go through such a transformation, even within the course of a few weeks, and but I don't know if maybe your mind can't keep up with that, you know what I mean? It's like a
Yeah. Or like,
cognitive dissonance.
yeah, you see yourself at the leanest and that's your goal. And then when you drop back from that, even if you've achieved your goal, it's a weird feeling. Plus the reactions that you get, like you kind of get addicted to that and you get addicted to the progress. And so you go backwards. It feels literally like you're regressing, not progressing.
Sure. I understand that. Yeah. Now, do you have a prep coach and an opposing coach now?
I do, yeah. So my prep coach is Justin Jacoby. He's with Matt Jansen's camp. He had a phenomenal weekend with his athletes this weekend. He had 3 overalls and I think 1 or 2 class wins just in this weekend alone. Like, he is a phenomenal coach. He's amazing with women, and he puts his athletes' health and happiness first. I've worked with a handful of coaches, and I can say that not every single one of them pays attention to their athletes' needs as much as Justin does. So really quick, because I know we're limited on time, I switched to work with Justin only 4 weeks before I won my pro card.
Really?
So, yep,
Wow.
my former coach was not getting me there, and it actually advised me not to do the show and said I would not get my pro card. And I said, okay, watch me. And I went and I switched to Justin. I had been friends with him, and I said, do you think we can do this? And he said, we can try. And he told me later on he was very nervous about it, but we pulled off 18 pounds in 28 days and got the pro card.
Wow.
So Justin, I can't sing his praises enough. Wonderful friend, wonderful human being, wonderful coach, especially for women. My posing coach is Kenny Wallach. He's like such a dear friend of mine. I train clients out of and train at Signature Fitness in Belleville, New Jersey. And he's there every Saturday seeing posing clients in person. So I've gotten to be really close with him over the years. He's close with my family. Just saw him this weekend at Universe. So yeah, he's absolutely amazing and has turned me into the woman who has the stage presence that she does today.
Yeah, he's like a posing coach legend, in my opinion. He's really, he's good. And
no one better.
He's worked with Alyssa Capolino and done some really good work with her. And Justin, I just interviewed Kristen Leah
that's right.
last week, and she is working with him too. And yeah, it sounds like he is a really good coach, and he really looks out for his athletes and shows a lot of concern for your health and your just well-being in general. And
when we were going through all of the gut issues that I was facing, he actually advised me, and we found together a gut health specialist and a hormone specialist, and I switched gears and worked with him. His name's Matt Cusano on Instagram. He's Matt the Body Tech, and he runs Rise, RYZE, Rise HRT. If anyone wants to work with them, my code's BOSS20. But they worked with me to get my health back in order. And so Justin and I worked with him. So I switched gears and worked only with Matt for 3 months and still kept Justin in the loop. But it was wonderful, because what coach is okay with quote unquote losing an athlete for 3 months? But he stayed by me as a friend. And when after we ran the 3-month course with Matt, we had another call with Justin, the 3 of us, and then I went back to work with Justin once we had addressed all those issues. So I really appreciated the fact that he was okay admitting, hey, I'm not an expert at this. Let's find someone who's an expert, and then we'll switch gears.
Sure. That's great. And his name's come up before. We are at less than a minute. So
I know, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. No, this was terrific. Might have to do a part 2, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, could you do a quick flex for me?
Yeah, I can't give you a whole flex, but I'll give you a little quick bicep flex here. There you go. Everything else, I'm always with HDPhysiques, so you guys can find the rest of my flexing on HDPhysiques.com.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Joe Bayer does a great job. Yeah.
Yeah. He does.
Well, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure speaking with you. And
thank you, David.
I'll include your Instagram and then the coaches that we mentioned down below too. And but yeah, and we'll get this posted relatively soon too. But it was really a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.